Dear Taurus, there are weeks that look calm on the surface. No big waves, no obvious shifts. Everything stays in its familiar place. The steady work schedule, the conversations that sound the same as always, that soft, late afternoon light resting in the corner of the room, just like it usually does. And yet, inside, something stirs. Those who carry Taurus energy tend to value stability, not because they fear change, but because they understand the strength of a solid foundation. Like a large tree, its roots must go deep before its branches can stretch wide. For Taurus, stability isn't stagnation. It's the feeling of standing on ground that feels secure, but sometimes that very ground begins to feel a little tight, not because it has turned bad, just because it no longer fits the version of you that exists right now. It's a feeling that's hard to name. It isn't loud, it doesn't come with the urge to tear everything down and start over. It's more like putting on a shirt that once fit perfectly, and one day noticing the shoulders pull just a little. The shirt isn't wrong. Your body isn't wrong. You've simply grown. Maybe this week carries something like that. A familiar conversation feels like it's missing warmth. A job that once made you proud now leaves you thinking longer than usual. A habit that used to feel comforting now feels slightly heavy in your chest. And the strange part is, no one has necessarily done anything wrong. Sometimes uncomfortable truth doesn't arrive through conflict. It comes through quiet internal movement, when your inner world has shifted, but your outer world remains still. I've noticed something beautiful about Taurus energy. There's rarely a rush to leave. You sit with the feeling, you consider it, you question yourself, and that slowness and that willingness to pause gives your movements weight. But sitting with something doesn't mean ignoring it. When peace begins to feel a little crowded, it may not be a sign of failure. It could be a signal that you're expanding, like a room that needs another window, like a garden that needs more soil to plant something new. Stability still matters. It still holds value. It just sometimes needs updating, and realizing that quiet recognition may already be a bold first step. Not loud, not dramatic, just a single, honest moment with yourself. And strangely, moments like that are rarely loud. No one applauds, no one witnesses them. It's just you, and a very thin, very real feeling slipping quietly between thoughts that once felt familiar. There are things we avoid not because we don't see them. Quite the opposite. We see them clearly. So clearly that if we sit in silence for even a moment, they rise to the surface. But Taurus often chooses to keep walking, like the one holding the rhythm of the whole house together. When others still rely on your steadiness, you don't want to be the one who shakes the floor. And then there are those quiet evenings, when the sounds in the house settle, when the light softens against the wall, and the feeling returns. A relationship that makes your chest feel heavier when you think about it. A job that isn't wrong, it just no longer makes you feel alive. An old dream tucked neatly in a drawer, all gathering dust, but never truly disappearing. The discomfort isn't in the circumstances. It's in the fact that something inside you has shifted, while the scenery around you remains the same. Taurus carries a remarkable endurance, but sometimes that endurance feels like holding a door that's stuck. You can brace yourself against it for a while. Your shoulders can handle the strain, but stand there too long, and your arms begin to ache. And that ache, no one else sees it. Maybe this week, that ache begins to speak. Not as a scream, but as a deeper sigh than usual. There are phrases you've rehearsed in your mind for a long time. I'm fine. It's okay. It'll pass. But when you place your hand over your chest, you know those words don't fit the way they used to. Like a shirt that once hugged your body perfectly. Now brushing against your skin in a way that feels tight. What you've been avoiding might be as simple as this. Admitting you don't want to keep going the same way. Not to tear everything down, not to hurt anyone, just to stop hurting yourself through silence. Some changes begin with a very small thought. One morning, you wake up and you no longer want to convince yourself again. You no longer want to push the feeling further down. Instead, you begin to listen. The way a gardener listens to the soil, trying to sense whether it needs water or whether it needs to be turned over. And when you pause long enough to hear it, you may realize that this uncomfortable truth didn't arrive to break you. It arrived as a reminder that there is still something alive inside you, still a part of you that wants to breathe more freely, still a part of you that wants to walk in a direction that feels more aligned. Avoidance may have helped you maintain order, but honesty may be what brings you back to your own heartbeat. Maybe nothing outside has changed yet. It's still the same road, the same faces, the same steady rhythm of life. But once you've dared to look directly at what you used to avoid, something subtle begins to shift. Like the earth before rain. No drops have fallen yet, but you can smell change in the air. That faint scent in the air sometimes makes your heart slow down. Not because of obvious fear, but because you sense that if you take one more step, the people around you might notice the shift. And for Taurus, being seen while you're changing isn't always comfortable. You've grown used to being the steady one, the quiet but reliable one. That's the one who doesn't sway easily in the wind. That image is like a solid wooden chair placed in the center of a room. Everyone knows they can sit down without worrying it will collapse. And maybe you've lived in that chair for so long, you forgot you could stand up. What unsettles you isn't just the desire to change. It's the fear that others won't recognize you the way they used to. If you say, "I don't want this anymore," will they think you become inconsistent? If you choose a different direction, will they feel you've drifted away from what once felt familiar? There's a very quiet fear underneath it all. The fear of disappointing someone simply because you've become more honest. Taurus doesn't enjoy noise. You don't seek disruption. You don't want to create unnecessary waves. So sometimes you stay a little longer, in a job, in a relationship, in a role, just to keep the surface calm. But inside, something is growing, like a tree planted in a pot that once fit perfectly. At first, the roots fill the soil just right. Everything feels contained and stable. But as the trunk rises, the roots begin pressing against the sides, not because the pot is wrong, simply because the tree has grown. Maybe you're standing in that moment now. Not wanting to hold on to the old role isn't a betrayal of your past. It's an acknowledgement that you're no longer standing in the same place you once were. And growth sometimes comes with being misunderstood for a little while. The fear of being fully seen is deeply human. When you change, the familiar layers of protection shift too. You're no longer hiding behind stability like armor. You're stepping forward with edges that aren't perfectly smoothed, with answers that aren't fully formed. And yet, there's a quiet beauty in that imperfection. Because when you stand in a new place, even if it feels unfamiliar, you're allowing yourself to live in rhythm with who you are now. Not the heartbeat of yesterday, not the image others are used to, just your real heartbeat in this moment. And sometimes, growing up isn't about doing something dramatic. It's simply about admitting you no longer fit inside the old frame, and finding the courage to step out of it, even if a few eyes are still watching. That shift doesn't make you fragile, it makes you real. And when someone begins living more honestly with themselves, things that once seemed small start to become clear. Desires that were once labeled as luxuries begin to surface. They no longer hide behind reasonable explanations. Maybe it's as simple as wanting to rest without feeling guilty. Turning your phone off a little earlier, saying, "I'm tired today," without attaching an apology to it. For many people, that sounds ordinary. But for Taurus, the one who carries weight, the one who keeps the rhythm steady for everyone else, choosing yourself first can feel like a deep internal shift. Maybe it's the thought of trying a different path. Not because the current one is wrong, but because your heart doesn't beat the way it used to when you walk it. You begin to feel curious about roads you once passed by. Plans you set aside because it wasn't the right time. Some longings aren't loud, but they are persistent, like seeds beneath thick soil. The surface may look still, but underneath there is movement. And at some point, the soil no longer feels heavy enough to hold them down. This week might carry something like that. Not a storm, more like a quiet push from within. You no longer want to live just to keep everything undisturbed. You no longer want to be the steady one if that steadiness requires silence around your own feelings. Living in alignment with yourself isn't about pushing against anyone. It's more like adjusting your posture after sitting too long. You're not disrupting the room. You're simply shifting so your back doesn't ache. These longings don't always arrive in grand form. Yes, sometimes it's just the wish to say one honest sentence, to try something new even if you're not completely sure, to step away from a space that makes you shrink. And something interesting happens when you allow yourself to listen. You begin to feel a different kind of energy forming. Not impulsive, not rebellious, but quietly alive. Like opening a window after a house has been closed up for too long. Fresh air enters. It doesn't change the structure of the home, but everything inside feels lighter. Taurus rarely changes on a whim. If you're beginning to feel a pull, it may have been growing in you for a long time, and simply acknowledging it, even privately, is already meaningful movement. Maybe what matters most isn't the action that comes next. Maybe it's the courage to allow yourself to want, and to admit there are things you desire more than surface-level peace. And when someone who is known for standing firm begins listening to their inner call, a very particular shift takes place. It may not be visible right away, but you feel it, like water moving beneath the surface of a lake, slow but powerful. Sometimes boldness doesn't begin with a dramatic act. It begins with a whisper. I deserve to live in a way that feels true to me. When that sentence appears in your mind, it doesn't sound like a slogan. It's quiet, but clear enough that you can't pretend you didn't hear it. And then, discomfort begins to take on a different meaning. Honestly, feeling unsettled isn't pleasant. It keeps you awake a little longer. You glance at the clock in the middle of the night. You shift in bed, in searching for a position that finally feels right. You think more than usual. Things that once passed quickly now linger in your mind. And yet, that restlessness can feel a bit like an alarm clock. Not there to scare you, not there to throw you into panic, but to whisper, there's something here that needs to be heard. I've noticed that with Taurus energy, discomfort is often misunderstood. You don't enjoy disruption. So, when something feels off, there's a tendency to stabilize it immediately. Like when a table wobbles, you slide a small piece of wood underneath to make it stand still again, instead of asking whether the table belongs in a different spot altogether. But sometimes, keeping everything fixed in place is exactly what makes the body ache. Like shoes that are too tight. You can walk a few more steps. You can tell yourself you'll get used to it, but your feet won't lie. The pain is real. And at some point, you realize it isn't about weakness. It's simply that the shoes no longer fit. Inner discomfort works the same way. It may come from a sentence you swallowed, a plan you nodded yes to reluctantly, a role you continue to play even though something inside you has shifted. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't push you out of your old life overnight. It just quietly reminds you that something is brushing against your limit. And perhaps when you begin to see that discomfort as a teacher instead of an intruder, the energy shifts. You stop fighting it. You observe it. You ask, what is this trying to show me? The answer may not come immediately. Maybe it's only a small adjustment, an honest conversation, a slower decision. A boundary made clearer, but in the moment you stop blaming yourself for not feeling okay. You step into a different kind of boldness, not the kind that tears everything down, but the kind that gently reshapes things so they fit you better. And in a very quiet way, that can make your steps feel lighter, not because the road becomes shorter, but because you're no longer trying to walk in shoes that were never truly yours. When your feet touch the ground in shoes that actually fit, your walk naturally changes. There's no need to look strong, no need to prove anything. Your body knows how to balance itself, and a very quiet sense of reassurance moves through each step. Taurus boldness is rarely loud. It's not the kind that stands in the middle of a room and makes a dramatic announcement. It's more subtle than that. It looks like sitting across from someone and speaking honestly, even if your voice trembles a little, or gently shaking your head when something no longer feels aligned, instead of nodding just to keep things smooth. From the outside, these steps may not seem like much. Rewriting a message so it's clearer, rescheduling a meeting because you need time for yourself, choosing not to participate in something that weighs on your chest. But inside, those steps carry weight, because before them, there were nights of thinking, moments of questioning, times you tried to balance your own desires with what others expected from you. And then, at some point, you lean toward honesty, not to hurt anyone, not to rebel, just to breathe a little easier. I've always felt that Taurus courage has its own texture. It isn't fiery. It's more like a stone resting beneath a moving current. No matter how the water rushes past, the stone keeps its shape. And when it does move, it doesn't slide suddenly. It shifts slowly, but once it has changed position, it's not easily pulled back. Small but honest steps may not turn your life upside down in a single day, but they change the way you stand within your own life. You're no longer shrinking yourself to fit the circumstances. You're adjusting the circumstances, even slightly, to fit you. And something interesting happens once the truth has been acknowledged. You don't have to brace yourself anymore. The decision no longer comes from frustration. It comes from a calmer place. Like after a rainstorm, the ground is still wet, but the air is no longer heavy. Maybe you still feel nervous. Maybe your heart beats a little faster when you say what you truly think. But alongside that, there's steadiness. Because you know you're not playing the old role this time. You're not choosing what's familiar just to keep the peace. You're moving in rhythm with yourself. And sometimes the greatest boldness isn't about going far. It's about going true. To walk in alignment with yourself, it sounds simple. But sometimes to do that, you have to set down a few layers. The layers of I'm fine, of it's okay, of the smile you hold just a little longer than you need to. There's a quiet kind of strength in this, and I've always admired it in Taurus energy. It's the moment they stop trying to appear steady all the time, everywhere. The moment they allow themselves to say something real, even if it isn't polished, that even if it isn't perfect. Honestly, I'm not comfortable with this. That sentence doesn't shake the room. No one storms out. The world keeps turning, but inside you, something clicks back into place, like straightening a picture frame that's been hanging just slightly crooked. No one else may notice the shift, but every time you look at it now, there's no tension in your chest. Not pretending to be okay doesn't mean you're weak. It's more like taking off a heavy coat when the weather has already warmed. You don't need to keep wearing it to prove you can endure. You choose comfort over unnecessary strain. Maybe this week you begin to see that staying silent for too long comes with a cost. The cost of shrinking yourself to fit expectations. The cost of smiling when your heart isn't smiling back. And when you admit how you feel, even if it's just to one person or quietly to yourself, you reclaim energy that's been held back. The uncomfortable truth doesn't shake you the way you once feared. It doesn't take away your stability. If anything, it's like adjusting your center of gravity while standing on slightly uneven ground. You don't fall. You just shift so you can stand more firmly. Some people feel powerful when they control everything around them. Others, and Taurus often belongs here, find strength in how they choose to respond, in no longer performing steadiness just because they're afraid of being seen differently. This kind of change doesn't require an announcement. It doesn't need a long explanation. It shows in your eyes when you speak your truth, in the way you listen when your body says it's tired, and in the moment you pause instead of continuing out of habit. And when you're no longer spending energy maintaining an image, you create space. Space to live more honestly. Space to breathe more deeply. Space to see what truly matters to you. On the outside, life may look the same. The same routines, the same streets, the same rhythm. But inside, you're no longer standing at an angle. You're standing where you belong. And when someone stands in the right place within themselves, they don't need to say much. They don't need long explanations. Their presence simply feels different, not brighter, not louder, just steadier. The boldest steps don't always change the outer world. Sometimes they quietly shift the way you treat yourself, the way you listen to a feeling instead of pushing it down, the way you stop when your body is tired instead of forcing yourself a few steps further. Maybe this week doesn't bring a dramatic turning point. No grand scene unfolds, but inside, you begin speaking to yourself more gently. You stop seeing discomfort as an enemy. You begin to see it as part of growth, like soil that needs to be turned so the roots can breathe. And when you allow yourself to sit with those uncomfortable truths, without rushing to fix them, without trying to paint them prettier than they are, a different kind of peace appears. Not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from no longer pretending. Moving toward yourself is rarely a straight line. Sometimes it curves. Sometimes you take a step and pause to think. But each step carries a new honesty. And honesty, in its own quiet way, is a form of courage. Maybe the deeper question this week isn't how much you've changed, but how honest you've allowed yourself to be. Was there a moment when you chose to say what you truly felt, even if only in silence? Sometimes boldness doesn't live in grand gestures. It lives in the permission to be a little more real each day. And maybe, in that slowness, you begin to notice something subtle, that the road you're walking, even if it isn't perfect, still feels like it belongs to you. Like a quiet afternoon without wind, when you sit still and realize you don't have to run anymore.